Hello, Vineyard.
Welcome to our final podcast of 2020, as far as we know, unless we feel like doing another one. But I think we're pretty settled on taking a break for the Christmas season coming up. And
Yeah, we got next few weeks in December. There's other things happening, and I'm actually in my messages. I'll be switching to Christmas sort of theme messages.
well, this weekend we have Pastor Billy preaching for us because
Yes.
you're going to a cowboy wedding.
I am, yes, yeah, up to Fort Myers for a cowboy wedding. Looking forward to that. Got some friends getting married, so gonna go. That'll be our first time that we've actually been away from here since the beginning of March. I think I left once to go to Miami for a day. And other than that, I don't think we've left the Keys since COVID. You know, we had gone to California for a meeting the very first week in March.
Well, that was like pre-pandemic, really.
It was, well, all of a sudden there were little
It was
things.
starting to inch up. In
It was
California.
happening in Seattle. There was cases, and then like there was a half a dozen in California or something, and I was in California, and I'm like, because we didn't know what that meant. But we got back, and then shortly thereafter, everything shut down. So anyway, I'll be doing Christmas messages. So one of the main source of questions for this comes from a group of students that I work with. And I'm going to give them sort of a holiday breather. And since we're not going to be, really jumping any more into Galatians until the new year, we'll just take a little break. If you have questions, go to Vine Press Questions. Still, you can ask them, and I will send you back the answers if I have. I should have your email addresses, so send them to me, and I'll send them back.
Cool. Yeah. So if you are a student, enjoy your Christmas vacation.
Yeah.
Or get caught up.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're working on little stuff. We're trying to get the behind the scenes stuff for the live stream working, and that's been it's been a fun challenge. So that's been at the top of my to-do list, is making that as smooth as possible. We're almost there.
Yeah.
We had a couple of successful nothing happened services and a couple that weren't quite as successful, but we're always working on that and improving that. And
hurricane season is finally over.
hooray.
Yeah.
It is no longer an immediate
It was
threat
a- it
until
was
June, which
Yeah.
it seems like hurricane season is way longer than not hurricane season.
Yeah, although they're the same time.
Yeah, but there's just the feeling of you might get a hurricane.
Yeah, well, it's kind of that impending thing. You got to watch all sorts of stuff. Where now you can,
And now the weather's super nice too.
beautiful day today. Yeah,
It is
had a
Tuesday
little
at
cool front for a couple of
66
days.
degrees
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, rather than shooting the breeze, why don't we get right into our questions here? So first one's for you, obviously. What are some indicators we are living in Christ's righteousness and not the righteousness of our own selves?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would just say that the best way to sort of think about that is self-righteousness doesn't produce any fruit in your life. And so my immediate thought was you go to the fruit of the Spirit, right? And that's what should be happening: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. That's Galatians 5:22 and 23. And I would recommend everybody knows that one. Against such things there is no law. This is what's happening as you're pressing into the Holy Spirit, and He's changing you from the inside out. And those things are, that fruit is developed in the context of relationship, our relationship with God, our relationship with other people. And I really think that's how you sort of know. In a believer's life, that's what should be happening. Fruit should be being developed. There should be changes in people's lives. Some immediate and some over time. So to me, that's the best way of knowing. Self-righteousness is not fruitful. It just makes people not very nice, and very critical and judgmental. And so you can pretty quickly tell when you're around people that are very self-righteous, and you'll feel it. At the same time, there's almost a seductiveness to it, because self-righteous people will try and pull you into their thing and be judging other people and try and get you in it. And often that's, sort of coach in the terms, in the ideas of gossip and everything. You start talking about people, and gossip in itself is very seductive. So, you can be aware of those things and then always, look at that against that scripture: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And say, is that what's going on here? Is this loving? Is this kind? Is this patient? And if not, that's not an area you want to go. But really good question.
Nice. All right, next one. This isn't a super biblical question this person wants you to know, but they feel it's an important question. They like what they do for work, but they always experience a lack of confidence before a job, which causes them to flip-flop emotionally and sometimes dread doing the job. Have you ever experienced that, and could you recommend ways to overcome this?
Yes, I've experienced that. I think everybody's experienced that at some times. I was thinking, earlier when I looked over the question, I reminded myself of a time very early in my life as a believer in a church, and they were doing a Christmas production, and my wife Alice, she really wanted to be in it, and so she convinced me to be in it, and I said okay, and there was a lot of lines to learn and everything, and I can remember sitting in this. We were actually on the stage in a house. It was a box house, but we were there when the play started, and then we were going to come out of the house, and I can remember sitting there thinking, why am I doing this? I could just be sitting out in the audience with everybody else. What was I thinking? I don't want to do this. This is horrible. And then, it went okay. And I would say, so let me answer the question the best I can. Two things, spiritually, I would say when I'm feeling that way, I go to my favorite verse, Philippians 4, and do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, regard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Now, I believe that Scripture is true and valid, and I go to that one often throughout the day. And so I would start there when you're feeling those things, all emotionally undone and upside down, and go with that one. And because what you want is the peace of God, which transcends all understanding and really does kind of come in and change things. And then, if you need something a little more practical, another thing that I've done over my life as I'm waiting for that verse to work is I will think to myself, as big as this seems right now, this feeling, in, a year from now, it's probably not going to make any difference at all. 5 years from now, I won't even remember it. And maybe, a day from now, it's not going to make a difference. Right now, it feels big. I just sort of try and tell myself, eventually this is not going to be an issue in my life. This thing isn't going to be the main thing. So I find that to be a little helpful sometimes. But I think the big one was the Bible verse. Go there first. Ask God to help you. You want His peace. It transcends understanding. Guard your mind and your heart, which is where all the issues are. Hopefully you settle down, and you do everything the best you can. And in life, unfortunately, some things don't work. And that's just, we learn from those things, and you do the best you can. I mean, we try lots of things that don't work. If all of our ideas work, we wouldn't keep getting better at stuff.
No, yeah, it's really only through failure that you learn things are not working good. Because if it just works good the first time, you don't really gain any knowledge, really. So it's just do it. I mean, I hate to quote, like
yourself,
silly sports commercials.
Do the thing.
Just do it. Yeah. It's like we have to learn that as kids. Really, look, have to go to school 5 days a week. What? Why are we doing this 5 days a week? I don't want to go to school. Wake up out of bed like, I just want to stay home. But it's just it can be hard getting that initial bump of motivation. So, it's good to have that Bible verse, and you can always pray for help. Okay, and like you said, it's never too big of a deal. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill kind of deal.
Yeah. And school, it's funny you bring that up, because I was just thinking, I'm 60, I'm still going to school.
Yeah.
5-6 days a week.
But you get to do classes that you enjoy.
Yes.
You handpick them. They're whatever you want to learn about. As a kid, it's, am I really going to be using...
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, this. So, but all good. Good question. Next one, this person's 7-year-old asked them today if heaven is in their heart, and they were having a bit of a hard time explaining in a way that the 7-year-old could grasp. They told the 7-year-old, heaven is where God is, and we can't usually see it, but it's right close by, and sometimes we do get to see bits of it. They almost jumped into the whole spiritual beings thing, but wasn't sure if that would be helpful for a 7-year-old or just kind of freak him out. Any advice for helping a 7-year-old to understand where heaven is, what heaven is?
No, but that story, that makes me think, when your 7-year-old heaven in his heart. Do you know what my 7-year-old had in his heart?
Oh, that's funny. well, somebody had asked, and there's a show called Gumby, okay? And we watch it. It was made, in like the 1940s or whatever? But in the song, it says Gumby lives in your heart. So I'm going off of that. And somebody had asked, well, who lives in your heart? And, to my knowledge, it was Gumby at the time. And I was younger than 7. You'd probably try to say I was like 12 or 13 or something. No, I was probably 5, which is a little, like,
I'm
come
sorry.
on now. And then it just reminds you of Eddie Murphy. I'm Gumby.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
Yeah.
For, not quoting that verbatim.
Yeah, we had friends we were traveling somewhere with, and the kids had jumped in their car for part of the journey, and they came out saying, "Look, Douglas, we were asking him about Jesus, and he said he has Gumby in his heart." So
Jesus is in there now.
Yeah.
But Gumby does not. I don't think I've watched Gumby in years.
Well, I hope not.
They ought to make like a CGI Gumby, where it's not claymation.
Maybe they have. Who knows what they've done with them? I don't know.
They've remade everything else.
I'm sure there's a new Gumby. We'd have to follow up on that, but I don't really care.
Wow. Okay, he was never in your heart.
No. Those concepts are kind of hard to explain to a 7-year-old, so keep them simple.
Hard to explain to an adult.
Yeah, but it's only as we can sort of grow into it that we can understand some of those concepts of the now and the not yet, and that what heaven is, and then to take on that next chunk, that there's life after death, and what does that mean? Most people can't process that at way past 7. I would just say that the simple version is that heaven is very close. That was a good answer. It's where God is, and I think that's a good answer. But although then that makes him feel like he's not here, he's here too. So, it's a kind of a tough one. But heaven is a perfect place, and someday we'll get to be there. As we continue to follow Jesus, and we'll get to see everybody that's gone on before us. And I keep it fairly simple. Lots of different ideas will come in, and I try and keep those things, as clear as they can be. Then questions about angels come, and then they start thinking Christmas movies that people become angels. You got well, that's not. There's angels and there's people, and you don't become angels. And but some of their brains can't process a lot of those things. So unless it's a big deal, just kind of smooth it through. And
you also don't want to make any heretical statements out of ignorance either.
No.
So,
No.
But I like what you say. Just keep it simple, in the pocket. It's a perfect place. God lives there. Someday we get to go there too.
Keep it as simple as you can. And then as they get a little older, hopefully you can revisit some of those questions. Because as teenagers, it's a good way to go. And fortunately, teenagers are often far more inquisitive now than about some things. And that's always a good way, especially spiritual things. And so you want to get them, moving in the right direction as soon as you can. And I know what you guys are. Keep reading Bible stories. Keep doing all those things. Get all that stuff in there as deep as you can. And then then you have a great sort of background to work on, a great foundation.
All right. We got a few more questions here. Would you please discuss some of the hard sayings of Jesus in Luke chapter 14, specifically 27 and 33? Or actually, they bring up chapter 14, but 25 through 35 has a lot of things that sound like cross plus. Or is this just to remind us we need to keep growing after we're saved by grace?
All right, well, let's read it. Here we go. So 25 to 35, Luke 14. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. That, I'd say, was one of those hard things. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciples. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile it's thrown out. Whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. All right, so there's some tough sayings in there. And so the difference would be why it's not cross-plussing is these, those things are not how you get saved. You still get saved by responding to the gospel. Responding to the gospel, however, means that there are some things that happen that we need to be aware of. One of those things would be that we have to realize, and that word there in the beginning, that thing about, hating your... Jesus is using the word as a contrast to, it's a priority thing, that following Jesus is going to have to be the most important thing in your life. So for some people, they decide not to follow Jesus because their family is against it. And they're making that choice. That's the choice, all right? So, if it comes to, I'm going to follow Jesus or I'm going to go in my family's wrong direction, then that's where it gets tough. You need to follow Jesus because, and that would be the thing. However, we're supposed to love people, and that's certainly, he's not contradicting that. And so, we would love our families, but not to the point where we didn't do the thing that God has called us to do, which is respond to the gospel and knowing him. So some people, unfortunately, have those hard choices to make where, their families are solidly against it, and they in effect are often, will lose initially some contact with their family. So I get that that's a hard situation. My family, we weren't a church family. And so, following Jesus didn't separate me from them, but they, I don't think they just thought it was a phase for years, and a fad, and didn't think it was important. And I did see, changes ultimately in that, in them, but even when they didn't understand, we had parts of the family ridicule us sometimes, Alice and I. It never stopped me from wanting to continue to press in. And that's kind of the thing there. That first statement means that following Jesus is the most important thing in your life. And then from that will come his love, and then you love everybody, well, and that's what we're supposed to do. So that's a hard saying. And then, picking up the cross and following him just means this life is, we're going to be doing that. We're going to choose every day to follow him. And it's not always the easiest thing to do. It's not always the way the culture would go. Are we willing to live, sort of counterculture to follow Jesus? And we still have to do that. We still, the world does a lot of things that are not okay with us. We have to live in it. But, and they accept a lot of things, and people go, oh, well, I want to do that. I want to follow Jesus too, but I want all that stuff. And you have choices that you have to make. It's not a cross-plus thing. It's just the reality of Holy Spirit's in you now, and he's directing you, and he won't let you settle in that because he wants the very best for you. And so, those things are at work in our lives and all that's going on. And then, don't give up everything you have, can't be his disciple. That's pretty tough too. It's a willingness more than an actuality of it. When he has the discussion with the rich young ruler, the issue is, he says, okay, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, well, go give away everything you have. And he can't do it because that's more important to him than following Jesus. So they're not equals. It's what's ultimately most important. And when it's most important, then I remember we were reading this past week in the message, and Paul says, I just gladly gave all that stuff up. I consider it rubbish now because I want to walk with Jesus. We kind of have to have that attitude as we press into this whole thing.
Nice, great answers. 2 more questions, it looks like. If no one is able to be justified by the law, that means that before Jesus, no one was justified. However, Abraham was counted righteous because of his faith. Can you explain more about Old Testament righteousness versus New Testament justification?
Yeah. So they're different. They're slightly different, obviously, and so we think of righteousness, and we tend to think of righteousness as having being a moral thing. That if we're doing if we do good things, then we're righteous, and it's really more of an identity thing, righteousness, in that when Jesus goes to the cross and defeats the enemy and rises again, he restores. We have his and then the righteousness of God. It's an identity thing. Our original identity is restored. The enemy, we were reflecting him, his identity, and that's why all that mess was happening. But now we have this new identity. So righteousness, you have to think of it more as an identity thing than a sort of a works thing. And justification's different because that's something that is given to us, that God is seeing us in the perfection of his Son, and it's a relational thing. So Abraham, it's credited to him as righteousness, and it's a great thing. We're actually going to look at that in our next time I'm back in Galatians, because we'll be in Galatians 3, and Abraham gets brought into the conversation. And so if you want to go back and look at Genesis 12, 13, 14, 15. And what was credited to Abraham as righteousness is that he heard from God about the all nations springing from him, if you go see that in context, and he believed it, and that was credited to him as righteousness. So you have to understand that wasn't that was just him believing, and hearing and believing is what was going on there. And that particular term for righteousness is only used one other place in the Old Testament, and that's in the Psalms, and it's in Psalm 90, I think. Wait, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. No, Psalm 106, verse 30. And it's referring to Phineas. And Phineas does something that's credited to him as righteousness as well. And you go, oh, maybe it's, what good thing did Phineas do? What kind of moral... And if you want to go read about Phineas, you need to go to Numbers 25. And what had happened was the Israelites had been intermarrying with the Moabites, and they were, after being expressly told not to, and God says that can't stand, that's got to change. You need to stop it. It was stronger than that. And then this Israelite man walks in on that discussion while they're all sitting around weeping over what they've done, and he walks in with a Moabite woman and takes her into his tent. And Phineas jumps up and grabs a spear and runs it through both of them.
Ugh.
Done. And that's credited to him as righteousness. So that will make you think about that term for a little bit, but you might want to go read.
The first ever shish kebab. Sorry, that was wrong.
That was wrong. Yeah, that was wrong. Post-production, baby. That one.
Yep, yeah. No, that's staying in.
So there's those differences. So then I think what you need to do, a better answer to that whole question, just so we clear that up, is that the Old Testament folks, it was still in Jesus that they would ultimately be justified, and that's where you need to read Hebrews 11, because they believed. They heard and believed, and they did all those things believing in the promise of a Messiah, not fully understanding it, but believing that it was going to happen, and it's in that they were sort of found life. So go back and read Hebrews 11, and you can see how that sort of ties together. So I hope it's a great question, and you've got a few weeks till we have more questions, and so maybe you'll go and spend some time looking at that. I think it's great. So read the Psalm, and then 106. Look at that, and then go and read Numbers. It's Numbers 25, so you see the story, and then read Hebrews 11 and see if that doesn't sort of clear things up a little bit.
Awesome. All right, this is our last question for the year. I'm sure we'll get more questions, but the last one we'll answer. Do you think that the Protestants were guilty of cross-plussing when they added the doxology line, "For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever," to the original text of the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah, no, because I don't think they were making it a salvation issue. I think that goes more in line with the Lord's Prayer. So it is often in many places just something that's repeated, and that's all that it is. It's just repeated, and so I think when you're and so it becomes in effect, just like liturgy. Which is okay, but it loses its meaning. So when they added the line to it, they were just trying to deepen that in the way that it was recited, I believe. But I think when Jesus gives his disciples the Lord's Prayer, it's not just something that they would say. He's saying, look, this is how you pray, and there's elements in it. There's worship in it, and there's it's remembering who God is. It's asking God, daily bread stuff. It's asking, keeping your forgiveness levels right in the prayer. It's actually taking steps with each one of those sort of lines and doing something with them. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That you stop there and you begin to praise and worship. Let your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Lord, I don't want to be on the throne of my life. I want you on the throne. Let your kingdom come, Lord. Let it break through now. I want to see you at work. Let me, be yielding to your Holy Spirit. These are things in the give us today our daily bread, Lord. These are the things that I would love to see you do on behalf of, my family and my friends and the world, and these are my own needs, God, and I lift them before you. And just like you give me daily bread, I ask that you would, Lord, have your way in those things. Forgive God. Let me think about anybody that I'm holding unforgiveness for, and let me not do that because you don't like that. Forgive me for my mess because I've had a lot of them, already in the day, and so we make sure that we've taken care of all those things. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I like this. I pray that prayer. I often will think about the armor of God, and I'll take time to put that on. So I think that what we need to be careful of is that added to or not, that we don't allow it to be just liturgy. We need to take it deeper, and it's a model for prayer, and that we take it that way. But anyway, great question, and like I said, I think the adding of the thing on the end doesn't take away from it, and and I don't see it as a cross plus kind of thing.
Cool. Great questions. Thank you guys for all the questions this year, and we're looking forward to picking this back up in 2021. Like you said, you're going out of town this weekend. Pastor Billy's up. His message is called "What to Do When the Bottom Falls Out." So it'll be a good message.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, you got the notes too.
I did. I looked at it. Looks like it's going to be real good.
I don't have them in front of me, but it was good.
Yeah, and if you've never heard Pastor Billy, you're going to love Pastor Billy.
He's an amazing speaker.
Pastor Billy has been in the ministry maybe a little longer than me. We run about the same time, and pastored his own church in Texas for years and years and years and years and years. He's a great speaker and communicator, and he's a worship guy too. So he's going to weave that into it. It's going to be really good. I think you'll really enjoy it. I'll be watching from. I'm actually going to visit another church in our area while I'm gone, but I will be watching online here. When I'm not there.
Huh. So that'll be exciting. This weekend's worship is going to be good. Pastor Jerry's leading our arrangement of How Great Thou Art. We cover Paul Beloch's arrangement. We love that one. It's good. And then the second song we're doing, I'm actually leading. It's from our friend Michael Bryan, who visited in March. He has an Advent song called We Are Waiting. That'll be a good one. And then after that, Angie's leading a new one by Jesus Culture called Stones. We've done it in the past. I Won't Let the Stones Cry Out. Great song. And we will end the set with O Come, Emmanuel. My wife, Kimberly, will lead that for us. So that's our weekend worship set. And you'll want to check it out Saturday, 7 o'clock. And then Sunday morning, 8, 9:30, and 11. And that's pretty much all I have to say. You got anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. Thank everybody for, we just did Samaritan's Purse, the children's shoebox thing, and that went really well. Now we're doing a little local thing.
Drive, yep.
And we partner with Presence in Paradise. And so I just want to thank everybody again for their generosity as we move towards that. And look forward to getting back into this right as the new year happens. So, don't forget about it. Don't get too out of the habit. If you're just getting into the habit, we'll be back.
And enjoy the Christmas season and Advent and all that good stuff. And good health to you. Keep checking out, the church's website and the Bible Institute, all that good stuff. And we'll see you this weekend.
We will. And major changes are happening on all the websites, or even now. You won't see them for a while yet, but they're all being redone, and you're going to like it.
To be more for aesthetic enjoyment. That's what
and sort of, it's going to be good. So
be good.
Lots of work going on right now.
All right. Goodbye, Vineyard.
Goodbye, Vineyard.
Thanks for watching today's service from Keys Vineyard Community Church. Make sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. For more information, log on to keysvineyard.com. We'll see you next time.